Hi, my name is Paul, and welcome to the DM's Lair, a series where I give you advice I've picked up over my many years as a dungeon master. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the concept of an adventuring guild, and the very specific style of adventuring guild that my players and I have been enjoying for the past couple of years. If you've ever seen the animes Naruto or Fairy Tail, then you'll have a very good understanding of my style of play. But fear not if you haven't, I'm going to break it down for you. Starting with the tone of the game. The first thing is, make your guild feel like a character. Give it a personality. Now, I don't mean a voice or sentience. I mean, when your players enter the guild, they should literally feel something. When my players return after a long job back to the guild, as they enter, they're greeted by Fax, a copper-scale dragonborn, the guild's caretaker and chef, who begins to cook them up a meal. They're greeted by the guildmaster Reed, a human that's seen a lifetime of adventuring, as he comes to greet them and hear the details on their last job. They'll see the familiar faces of their guildmates, sitting around, drinking, eating, enjoying themselves. Also, have a soundtrack for the guild hall, an upbeat, happy track that will trigger that joyful emotion to your players. The party will build bonds with their guild and make real connections, and you can do a lot to encourage this. Have their guildmates talk with the party when they're in the guild hall, or have them go out on a job together. These interactions make the guild feel real and immersive to your players. I strive to give my party the feeling of, these are my guildmates, this is my guild and I'll do what it takes to protect it. During the final arc of my last campaign, when the party was facing down an immortal demigod trying to ascend to godhood, and several of the demon princes, they called in for aid, and every member of their guild and others that they had made connections with showed up to help. This is one of the coolest moments. It was a very Avengers-style moment, very similar to Infinity War when everyone showed up to fight Thanos. Another good example is Vox Machina from Critical Role. Their characters were a bunch of misfits who found each other, and by the end of the campaign, they were like a family, and that's the feeling I'm trying to invoke in this campaign. But not just from player to player, but from them to feel that way with all the members of their guild, and the guild itself. And that feeling of family and friendship, that is the general tone of my adventuring guild style of campaign that I try to create. Now that you understand the tone of the game, let's talk a bit more about the types of NPC guild members that are in your guild. You want to make them memorable. I do this by giving each one little quirks that make them stand out. Perhaps it's a mannerism of theirs, or just the way they interact with the party. For instance, I used an NPC in the guild who was quite antagonistic towards the party, calling them weak. And although this doesn't seem like it fits in with the tone I try to build, it allows for a redemption arc, where you can see this antagonist NPC actually help the party because the guild is still their home. I recommend having a guild caretaker or receptionist that'll always be around when the party takes a job. Perhaps they register that job with the caretaker, letting them know that they're taking that specific job. The caretaker could also prepare meals and serve drinks. Also, every guild in my world has a guild master, a wise, older, retired adventurer, one that is still extremely strong and will do what is needed to defend their guild, and those in it, who they see as their responsibility, their children. Also, in terms of reoccurring NPCs, I have several different guilds on my continent, both normal adventuring guilds and evil guilds, known as dark guilds. I like to prepare jobs where the players will run into members of other guilds, so they can build friendships or compete against a rival guild. The Grand Guild Games is an annual event in my world, where the guilds compete against one another in a number of Olympic-style games and events. This really helps with the creating and furthering those friendships or rivalries in other guilds. In my world, I use a class ranking system to represent the reputation of the party and members of a guild. I use an S, A, B, C, D, and E class of rankings, S of which is the strongest. This ranking is used to show the progression of a party throughout the guild, and how much they are making a name for themselves. E and D classes make a name amongst the small populace they help. C, perhaps you're saving a small town. B class, people around the major cities are starting to talk about your deeds and conquests. A class, the whole kingdom knows your name. And by S class, well, you're one of the strongest adventurers on the continent. A legend. Another cool thing you can do is give the higher ranking members a nickname or a title. For instance, Uncle Iroh from Avatar The Last Airbender, they called him the Dragon of the West. In Fairy Tail, they called Natsu Salamander. In Naruto, they called Hashirama, the first Hokage, a god of shinobi. This is a really cool way of instilling how strong a character might be. In fact, players might earn their own titles. after something cool they do on a job. In my last campaign, one of my players earned the title the Saint of the Twin Horizons after they completed a job that was intertwined with his backstory and his worship to Pelor. This creates a really defining and epic moment for both the player and the campaign. Defining moments like this is also a good way of gauging when a player should increase to the next class rank. I use a general level guide I created to basically keep track on where the party are and what levels I imagine the classes are. So for instance, an E class is the lowest rank, so I'd say E class adventurers would be around levels 1 and 2. An S class member, which are the strongest, might be level 11s and higher. Now again, this is just a general level guide, by no means do I need to follow it or even use it. I tend to promote my players' upper class ranking once they are near the levels on the guide and they've completed a hard job, or they have a very defining character moment that would increase their reputation. Now that we've outlined the tone of the game, the use of reoccurring NPCs, and the class rankings, I should really talk about the job requests. Well, in my world, civilians, organisations, or the local government might request adventurers to aid them in some manner. They'll do this by submitting a request to the guild in the form of a written parchment that'll contain some vital information. Essentially who they are, what the job is, and how much they will pay for completion. The job is then processed by the guild and given a class ranking: S, A, B, C, D, or E. Now, this is used to show there are different difficulties in terms of jobs, so the party who are C class are given a C class job, so they won't be able to take a job meant for an A class. Doing adventures this way, through the job requests, make it very easy to control the pacing of the story. Having big overarching storylines mixed with small 1 or 2 session jobs, it's also a very easy way of integrating backstory storylines. This is extremely important because I find backstories help draw players into the game, get them more involved and immersed in the world. The last thing I wanted to touch on was having your players join a guild. Make it a fun experience to join a guild. Give them a task to complete, perhaps a mock job that the guild made up as an entrance exam. Or perhaps the guild has an annual competition to find the best candidates that fit their ideals. Well, that's all for this episode of The DM's Lair. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to drop a like down below. Also drop a comment down below and let me know what you think of adventuring guilds. Lastly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. We've got a lot more in the works, from more DM Lair videos to fully animated shorts to a weekly campaign recap. Until next time, have a good one.